Are you okay?
I've had alpacas for 8 years, and I have seen it all. What's happening here? Today is the day that I give them their monthly shots, but it's also the day that I'm questioning whether or not it's even best to keep them on our farm. So the biggest thing is I don't want to chase him. I just want to slowly just make it very clear that there's no other option. They spit at potential threats. They generally don't spit at humans, but if you are caught in the crossfire, or if you own an alpaca named Ringo, you could be in danger real quick. We just gently move him into the corner and try to just, when he feels like there's nowhere else for him to go, he's not going to try to go there. And now we see one of their defense mechanisms. Ringo's the littlest of the lot, but he's got the most fight. This is just another precaution we can take. We want to be really careful though, as we're putting these on. They breathe from right here, and we don't want to restrict their nasal passage by making their halter too tight. Alpacas talk to one another by humming. You'll hear lots of that. Also notice the way that I'm tying this knot. Earlier I mentioned that we want to be really careful not to restrict their breathing. So in an emergency situation, like he falls over or something like that, and he's pulling on that, I can just take this and pull this and release him in one specific pull. And, so he's gonna cush. There you go. There you go, buddy. Okay, one down. Okay. So Paul is my favorite. Here, buddy. I know. I will definitely say that when I first got into alpacas 8 or 9 years ago, it was definitely because they're very cute. There's the promise of them being great flock guardians. But I have since, many years and many alpacas later, and especially since we've moved to a new climate, really questioned my choices in getting alpacas, because they are constantly trying to invent new ways to die. Our biggest issue, especially around here, is parasites and trying to keep up with, parasite production. We have to administer shots at least once a month, sometimes more. We have to keep up on natural dewormers. We have to, watch out for their feet health. They're prone to respiratory issues because their nasal passages, if something gets stuck in there, it can create an infection really easily. They have to be sheared, and if you don't know how to do that yourself, which I certainly didn't when I first got started, you have to find a shearer. And if you don't have a ton of alpacas, getting a shearer that'll even come for that few animals is a bit of a challenge in and of itself, and then furthermore, it's gonna be super expensive. Sorry, buddy, you're okay. There you go, bud. Even though alpacas are becoming more and more popular now, finding a vet that is familiar with them and knows, more than you do about alpacas is really difficult. We actually recently had a situation where I took Paul to the emergency vet who was supposedly the, area expert on alpacas. The person had never touched an alpaca before. So literally, I put my animal under a ton of stress and pressure to put him in the back of our car and drive him all the way down there as he was in distress. And we got to the vet, and basically I ended up administering all of the meds that we needed to get from the vet myself, which I could have very easily done at home if I was able to actually have access to those meds, because they couldn't even get the IV in. And so there's just a lot of things like that that are definitely worth considering, because truly, these animals, they are amazing. But it's also been really hard to have to bury a large animal that I cared a lot about that just simply couldn't be helped by the local veterinary offerings. So our beetles, George, Ringo, and Paul, became the Threedles when John died last year, due to the fact that I couldn't find a vet that knew enough about alpacas to actually save his life. As cute and fluffy as alpacas are, it's a big hole to dig if you get in over your head. And I'm thankful I've learned a lot since then, but that was a pretty hard lesson to learn the hard way. There's generally one lead male, and he is equipped with a castration tooth. He will then use that castration tooth to try to tackle all the other males in the herd and make it so that their genetics don't get passed on. only his do. Alpacas have a communal dung pile, which is especially important to their survival because if they were just to poo and pee all over the place and then eat in the same spot, parasites feed on their poo and pee, and so because these particular animals are so susceptible to parasites and other diseases, evolution caused them to develop this very interesting habit of basically being potty trained. Come here, Georgie! There we go, bud. Would I ever get alpacas again? Probably not. Would I recommend that you get alpacas? If you are looking for a fluffy cuddle muffin that is just going to be the best flock guardian and companion for you and the rest of your animals, definitely please don't get alpacas. But if you are ready to find a good vet, make sure you've got someone to shear them once a year and feel comfortable staying up with all of the health things, specifically parasites, heat, extreme weather, dentist stuff. I mean, look at those little teeths. Then yeah, get some alpacas. They are strange little land clouds that are from another planet and truly are so fun and funny to have around the farm, but they're also more stress-inducing than any of the other animals on the farm combined. 2 facts about alpacas. Their lips move independently of one another, so they're little finger lips. They grab onto little things with these little lippies. And also, they don't have teeth on the top. They only have teeth on the bottom, so this little pad is what they chew their food against, which ultimately is why we do worry about Georgie's teeth. I've been keeping a good eye on them. I actually did get a tooth saw in case we have to take drastic measures, but they're actually not getting any longer. But shoot, if I couldn't find an alpaca shearer and had to learn how to do that myself, couldn't find a vet that could administer an IV to an alpaca, what do you think the chances are that I'm going to be able to find an alpaca dentist? George is also the one that I worry the most about because he showed pretty severe symptoms of meningeal worm, which is a parasite that affects their neurological system and basically makes them go lame from their back legs forward. Some alpacas will recover from that neurological damage, some won't. He's done a pretty good job at getting over it, but I can always tell that he's stressed in some form or another because he starts to get really wobbly. And that's actually generally how some of these longer term illnesses really show themselves, is the animal seems healthy and fine until suddenly it's not. They conceal it really, really well. Okay, little man, please be a very gentle boy here. Ringo, you keep your spit to yourself, you little jerk. There you go, little man. Good boy. And just think about the fact that this is probably not the best, but it's also something that does need to happen on a very regular basis. We want to kill all of the female parasites at the height of their reproductive time, which, insanity of all insanities, is during the full moon. So we take all of these little random tools that we have in our toolkit and try to use them to keep these little jerks alive. So knowing how difficult it is to keep these guys alive and how stressful it is to keep them, a lot of people are probably going to wonder why I do in fact keep them. And the first and most obvious thing I think for me is that because I took them in. Changing farms is extremely stressful for animals. I want the day that they come to my farm be the last time they have to be in a trailer unless, you know, there's something awful that happens. I also really like them. I mean, they're so ridiculous. They're so entertaining, but they do add value to the farm. They have fantastic fiber. It's hypoallergenic, waterproof. It wicks away moisture. Before I learned how to spin, I used to have all of their fiber sent to a mill where it would be turned into little insoles to keep the feet of people in nursing homes warm during the winter. A lot of hikers like to use alpaca socks because it's cooling. Part of the reason that alpacas are such fascinating creatures is their fiber is actually what helps them regulate their body temperature. So in the spring, we have to be really, really careful about when we go about shearing them, because if it gets too cold at night, without their fiber, they don't have any way to regulate their body temperature. But then again, if they get too hot out in the sun and we don't have any way to cool them, then, you know, they could die of heat stroke. So there's another little thing to juggle. Hey, Polly, come on, buddies. Jeffrey, get out of here, you stinky little stink pot. Ugh. Jeffrey, see that little beard? That's where he catches all of his hormone-rich pee-pee. It's his very own goat version of Axe body spray. Learning about parasites and chemical resistance and natural deworming, and especially how all of that related to the lunar cycle, was absolutely fascinating to me. I've collected everything that I've learned about alpacas, their care, and keeping them safe on my Squarespace website, annavilletrades.com. On my website, you'll find all kinds of other articles about homesteading, DIY projects, and so much more. Squarespace has been a fantastic resource for someone who's not super tech savvy, like me, to be able to easily drag and drop everything that I want to share with the world into a beautiful artist design template that then shares it with the world. It's not just a blog though. Squarespace also helps me to host an online store where you can buy all of the online courses that I have. You can find project plans, merchandise, and a whole bunch more. If you're thinking about starting a website of your own, check out Squarespace. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/AnnavilleTrades for a 10% discount. If you didn't notice this earlier in the video, there are a lot of critters running around here. 101 to be exact. And if you want to see what morning chores while working full-time with a crew like this looks like, check out this video. I will see you there. Cheers! June.